It's interesting that they say the most stringent and not necessarily the best. But hey.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just in terms of that kind of working together, I mean, we're often told that there was a bit of a phase a few years ago where regulators were signing memorandums of understanding with each other. And there is a question in the report to the regulators about do you pay much attention to action from other regulators? And they say, yes, very much so. You know, if someone's doing something naughty in the UK, we want to know about it and we'll take a closer look at that operator. But I'm not sure. I don't see much evidence of that. I'm going to bang on about harmonisation. I'm going to have to stop it in a minute. But anyway.
I was going to say, if there's a case study of country A looking at country B because someone did not, and it doesn't make sense practically. You know, the law in one country for gambling is different to another. So what they've done in jurisdiction A, and I'm not going to name countries, might be legal in jurisdiction B. So how can they look at them?
Moving on. Shall we talk about affordability or AI first? Which
Up to you. I'm at your mercy.
Okay, let's talk about affordability. So, one of the really interesting things that I picked out was UK operators saying that they've all installed affordability checks, but the UK regulator says there's no need to install affordability checks because they do, is it financial vulnerability checks they do now?
Which to me is a kind of check on your finances, no? So affordability is coming down to your finances and what you earn. And from my understanding of the UK, and I don't live in the UK anymore, there's talk of submitting wage slips, etc., to the regulator or the gambling operator to prove your affordability. Well, I might be stoically British, but we don't like talking about money, politics or religion, so I'm not sure many people are going to want to submit their wage slip to a faceless operator, let's be honest. And my fear on that is, and I'm on record of saying this, that you don't want to drive people to the .com. If the regulation becomes to the point where it may become too intrusive to someone and then they go and look at a VPN site on .com, that's not what the aim of the affordability or the financial checks are.
Yeah. Moving on, operators rank early intervention as their toughest challenge. Why do you think that is?
I think because it's not an exact science. There's companies that put out information on what problem gambling behaviour can look like, but everyone in this room's different, and everyone else, you know, what can be, you know, for example, if I have 2 pints for me, is fine, but for my father it's not because he's an alcoholic. So actually, early intervention is needed, but it's not an exact science, and that's where I'm coming back to. But it was interesting from the Portuguese operator's perspective that they felt they couldn't engage as early as they wanted to because of the regulation. So this comes back to the point about consistency. And I'm not saying that needs to be uniformity, but you can have consistency within your jurisdiction.
Yeah. The point on Portugal, it's that you can't
exclude.
You can't exclude customers like you would under a normal self-exclusion system.
The report was even talking about intervention.
Yeah.
Points where they could, identify something that become a problem.
Yeah. So AI is one of the topics that everybody wants to hear about, and there is a feeling within the community that AI will be really important with responsible gambling and with early intervention. Do we already have the technology that can spot those worrying player behaviours before they actually kind of happen?
I'm sure if you walk the exhibition floor, there's 20 companies powered by AI that will say that they have those tools. I think that AI is something that's been talked about for a long time, and I compare it to when people were discussing mobile gaming for many years and the phones just didn't work. I think there could be, but I think AI is, machine learning, and the more information and the more data you have, the more effective AI becomes. So AI, I'd say AI with guardrails, and by that I mean we're moving to more and more personalised protection within the schemes of the regulation, but it needs to be aligned with the regulations, it needs to be aligned with the regulator, it needs to be transparent, but most importantly, it needs to be auditable. And by that, and you know, where I currently live in Armenia, there's talk about a tender process coming out, and one of those things is the primary point of that regulation may or may not be, because obviously I haven't seen government papers that aren't in the public domain yet, about that auditability of the operator. But I don't think it's just the operator, we also need to look at the B2B providers, and I think that's coming more and more as these big companies are becoming listed. I read something about Evolution's share value dropping because of certain spotlights being shined. So I think AI is a tool, and I think it's like many tools, but what I don't want it to become in the terms of regulation is another, what I call fadism. Let's talk about the latest fad. Let's understand the tool, let's grow the data, and let's use the tool effectively. And this is where Spain's interesting, because I understand they're introducing an algorithm next year. That's great, let's learn from that. Maybe it's an experiment, maybe it's not. But actually what's interesting to me about that is it takes some of the pressure off the operators. Because if it's the DGOJ in Spain that's implementing that, and it's their algorithm,
they then assume responsibility.
In theory.
Yeah.
Watch that change then.
I mean, that's an interesting point here, because one of my questions is how much of this is the operator's responsibility and how much of it is the regulator's responsibility. And I guess if that's anything to go on, that might be changing slightly.
I think it needs to change, and I used to be a PML holder in the UK, and I understand what these UK operators were fearing of engaging with the UK GC, because I didn't want to send an email, because I normally got... The guidance is the guidance, and it's written in beautiful legal English, which lawyers can understand, that's why they earn a lot of money. For a stupid 35-year-old living in Sheffield trying to understand the UK regulation of ground virtuals was quite difficult. But when I sent an email to the Commission, they just quote the guidance back at me. And I'm like, well, that's not what I'm asking. I'm trying to understand the guidance. And even when you engage lawyers, they then speak to the Commission, and the Commission's not always that helpful. So I think it needs to shift. Both sides would say it's on them, but I think the difference is the regulator enforces when the operator doesn't get it right.
Yeah.
So I think in most jurisdictions right now, it's on the operator.
Yeah, yeah. I meant to say at the beginning, if anyone's got any questions, then let me know.
Yeah, on that theme, it's Peter from sportsbettingoperator.com. You, Simon, partnerships between betting operators, sports leagues, media are growing. What's your view on how these collaborations are evolving? And, you know, they're evolving with obviously safer gambling.
I think everyone's got responsibility for that. I mean, you look at the UK Premier League, they've made the decision around shirt sponsorships, etc. But I think everything then comes down to collaboration. Now, as a big B2C operator, we see the benefits of our sponsorships and our associations with sports companies and clubs and brands, and it's beneficial. But I think it's, as everything, you have to work with the brands that you're engaged with in the right way. And I think you also need, it comes down to, firstly, as an operator, which brands do you want to work with? Because, you look at some of the UK shirt deals, you don't really understand them. And I know here at One Expert we look to work with the best, and I think you can see that with Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. I think also I was lucky enough to go to Riga and watch basketball through our partnership with FIBA. So I think if you do it in the right way, it can be a powerful tool. And I know from previously working in football, one of the biggest tools you had as a football club was a money can't buy experience. So we used to, at Sheffield United, you sponsored a player, but one of the perks of that was you went and saw training, which you couldn't do. And Chris Wilder came out, and he's back for the third time now. It's like a revolving door. Chris is a good lad, by the way, I'm not. So I think when you give those kind of experiences, that really enhances the power of your brand. But the power of your brand also needs to build trust with the end user. And I think that can be a very effective tool for sponsorships. And I think they will continue to evolve. I think as an industry we're adaptable, and we find different ways to engage correctly within the regulation with different organisations.
The SBC Summit. The SBC Summit brings together some of the most influential voices in the gaming and betting industry. What are the key message you want the industry to take away from this media presentation?
I think everyone's going to take away a need to sleep after 4 days, if I'm honest.
Not after like now.
I need some sleep, but that's just a different level of like. I mean, look, we have to, Raz is a friend, so I say this not just as a friend. Like what SBC have delivered to this point is amazing. To see the show grow is amazing, but I think as an industry, I just think we need to be a bit more honest with ourselves, and we need to learn how to engage properly. And actually, I want it to get back to be that fun, sexy, cool thing, because that's ultimately what we do. We entertain people. Now, what would I say to the industry, how we do that? It comes down to, again, as I say, being honest with ourselves, and understanding that regulation's here and we need to engage with regulators. But, I'm not dropping this in as a sales point. This isn't a one-off report that we've done. We're looking to expand, and I believe we're already working in partnership on the next one in Africa. So I think from reports which we will expand globally, we will get a global understanding, because again, as a guy living in Yerevan, what I see a lot is Western Europe looking at South Caucasus, Eurasia, Eastern Europe with a certain colonial viewpoint of we know better than you, do as you're told, but actually let's listen to the world, let's understand their problems, and maybe also learn something along the way.
Wow, that was quite deep.
Yeah, and my residency has been renewed. I'm not playing to the Armenian government.
And you took my last question, which was about what you wanted to see about the next reports. But just quickly, the next stop is Africa with these reports. You can't predict what's going to be in them, but One Expert's got a lot of history in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would like to see, hope to see, or fear seeing in the next report?
I don't think you fear anything. You learn. So if there is something, we're not the only operator in Africa. I think can't put it all on us, but I think I don't have fear of any report, and I don't think I think it's going to be a very different report to Western Europe, honestly, because I think Western Europe, in their view, is very advanced, know everything, do everything, but we're evolving. Africa's a younger market in terms of regulation, and if you ask the industry, they'd probably say the regulation is more fluid and not as enforceable, but let's see. I'm not wanting to make predictions, because it just generally means I look more stupid than I do on a day-to-day basis, but let's view this as an opportunity to learn. That's what I want to understand from the next reports. Maybe there will be some global trends that we see, and maybe there won't, but let's not view Western Europe as the standard. We can learn from others, and Africa can learn from LATAM. Let's get this idea of collaboration, and not just. I was talking about Western Europe with the communication, clarity, and consistency. Communicate. It's easier than ever now.
Across regions, across the globe, as well as within regions.
And be prepared to learn.
Yeah. Do I have any other questions from the floor? No? Oh yeah, one, Ted.
A bit of a curveball now, because we've just talked about Africa, but if we look back at Western Europe, I noticed there's an element of the report that highlights the Netherlands as having one of the most politically toxic environments for operators, I think was the wording. Have you got any hope that this might change, especially after the elections later this year, or are we stuck with a bit of a tricky situation in the Netherlands?
I think, from my understanding of the market, from how it's evolved, it's always been a challenging market for operators. I probably wouldn't go as far as to say it's toxic, because probably someone would put that song "Toxic" across what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it's a challenging market, and I think there is a reluctance from the Dutch authorities to show flexibility. It is very much, we are going to enforce, and I think that comes back to the point I was talking about earlier. Regulation just isn't about enforcement, it's about a conversation of understanding. From this report where 26% are saying they want more clarity, and 43% are saying they're unsatisfied with the regulation, that shows a need for engagement. I think one of the toughest markets to engage with is the Dutch market, and I'm not sure a change of government's going to make any difference there, because in any country, the idea of the civil service is business as usual when the government changes. I understand they may have a different manifesto. I just think that the Dutch market's very tough, and I think it's going to take a long time to change, if ever.
Thanks. And then in the UK as well, you mentioned sponsorships, sport sponsorships earlier. We've seen a lot of, I guess for want of a better word, dodgy sponsorships in the UK over the past couple of years.
Challenging.
Do you think that has contributed at all to the kind of loss of image and reputation that the industry has had there that you mentioned earlier?
I think it's an interesting one, and again, I can go back to my football days when I was at Sheffield United. Some of the emails we'd get about shirt sponsorships now, Prince of Dollar and Kevin, who were the owners at the time, didn't want to engage with a betting company on the front of their shirt. I think it's an evolving one. I don't think we've helped ourselves, but unfortunately, football is a very commercial industry and money talks. And yeah, the whole FSB stuff with Dafabet and certain other things didn't really help us. So yeah, I mean, but again, is that colonial? Because we don't understand this Asian betting brand, does that mean that it's not a good betting brand? Without knowing the owners, I wouldn't want to comment too much, but I think it's not just Asian betting brands or global betting brands. The UK betting brands are also there, and some were springing up left, right and centre at some points as well.
Cool, thanks.
No worries.
Any more for any more? Okay. Thanks everyone. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you for coming.